on the track.
SB on the beat.
How you supposed to have light if you got solar missing? Everything seemed bright with solar vision. A whole court and a witness, nobody noticed missing. I'm my own judge, jury, and the co-defendant. It ain't an idol if it's solar image. Get to the core, my nigga, no pretending. Hotter than Jamie Foxx on a solar mission. Melchizedek, no beginning nor an ending. Ain't no need to study long if you gon' study wrong. Got me chasing the ghosts with no lully bones. Blew a hustle anywhere but never hustle home. Mama pray for his soul cause he ain't coming home. Watch you doctrine get demolished. Bluetooth pilots for YouTube scholars. I do for knowledge, not no stupid dollars. My new provider make them hoop and holler. In the lead for the light bringers, Illuminati. You ain't doing nada and blue ain't bother. Can't be rolling with you with no stupid maga. No Candace Owens, I don't do Kamala. Free flowing out this new Kabbalah. Lumen in the garden, hit a human olive. And you can get this stick with no soup and salad. Blue seek asylum on a Cuban island. My newest challenge is live a long life. Can't nobody live it for you, you gon' live your own life. Right place, wrong time, I'm in the valley where the bones dry. I prophesy to the bones rise. How you supposed to have light if you got solar missing? Everything seeming bright with solar vision. A whole court and a witness, nobody noticed missing. I'm my own judge, jury, and the co-defendant. It ain't an idol if it's solar image. Get to the core, my nigga, no pretending. Hotter than Jamie Foxx on a solar mission. Melchizedek, no beginning nor an ending. Wake up, Jacob, tell him it's urgent. Identify me by the blessings, never the curses. Walk on water, but I never submerging. You a goon on Zoom, but never in person. My verses merge with the ancient letters. My rating's good, but my rank is better. You soft as Wayne and baby's leather. If I bring my best, you can't do better. Local natives surrounded by the foreigners. The throne of David, the crown is Moorish. I can anoint the babies and crown the poorest. I'm rolling out, I found the forest. Lex told me keep a head and a leg up. Y'all rob with a tank at your head, bruh. Consul told Blue keep your bread up. Seen solar at the door like Legba. Yeah, I'm shooting for the top like Rick Berry. Sneaking baseline, tryna rip Parrish. This is where your talking points get perished. Just to be a champion like Chris Harris. How you supposed to have light if you got solar missing? Everything seemed bright with solar vision. A whole court and a witness, nobody noticed missing. I'm my own judge, jury, and the co-defendant. It ain't an idol if it's solar image. Get to the core, my nigga, no pretending. Hotter than Jamie Foxx on a solar mission. Melchizedek, no beginning nor an ending.
That shit go crazy. That shit sick.
Yakim the Submitter versus Young Israel.
And so if Muhammad was the one giving the Quran to confirm the scripture, show me where Muhammad was mentioned in the scripture. Show me that.
I mean, well, first his name can be defined with us.
No. I need you to explicitly show me where Muhammad was mentioned in the scripture.
When you say his name, you're speaking our language that's coming from our
We're not talking about language. We're talking about personage here.
Well, how are you getting? Do you understand that his name is in our Torah? Do you know that, or you
what
do
I
know
do know
his
is that
name?
Muhammad was not prophesied as a prophet to him at all.
You have not read Deuteronomy 18.
That was a prophecy that had that's not about Muhammad, sir. Show me where the Bible mentions the name of Muhammad. I need you to show me that.
You go to Deuteronomy 18.
Okay, so does that
Deuteronomy 18 and 15? It clearly states
no.
There's going to be a prophet.
That doesn't say the last
like
and final.
Moses.
That doesn't say the last and final messenger.
But what it does say though is, what it does say is that there's going to be a prophet that's going to speak the words that Yahweh instructs him to speak.
Did Christ
and
do
hold on,
that?
stop.
Christ do that or did he not? You're not making sense.
And hold on, but when his message comes, the message will come in my name. And the word for it in my name is the Ismi.
Okay,
There's no other book. Hold on. There's no other book on the face of this earth that starts out with the Ismi
Okay,
by translation in my name. And
Let me go ahead
the only book that states that is the Quran. And the Quran does state in Surah 7 that it refers to that prophecy and it confirms that prophecy.
Okay, if it does, then explain. If it does, then explain.
You want to go there? Read 157.
What I'm going to read is what was before Surah 7, 157. And I'm going to read Acts chapter 3 to prove that was not about
who's the author of Acts?
It doesn't matter. Luke is the author of Acts. Luke is the author of Acts.
Prophet or a messenger?
Luke is a messenger of God. Let me read what Luke says.
Let me read
it so you can understand something. It says in Acts chapter 3, verse 18 and 19, but those which God before, it says, but those things which God before have showed by the mouth of all his prophets that Christ, Hamashiach, should suffer, that he have so fulfilled. Repent ye and therefore be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the time of confession shall come in the presence of Yahweh, when he shall send Yeshua HaMashiach, which was before preached unto you, which the heaven, watch this, and the earth must receive, it says, which the heaven must receive until the time of restoration of all things, which Elohim have spoken by the mouth of his holy prophets since the world began. For Moses, Acts chapter 3, verse 22, pertaining to Christ, for Moses truly said unto the fathers, the prophet shall, it says, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto your brethren like unto me. Him shall ye hear in all things whatsoever he shall say unto you. And that's about Hamashiach, sir. That's what Acts chapter 3, verse 19. And again, Luke is the writer of Acts chapter 3, verse 19, which was here way before your prophet Muhammad in Surah 157. So again.
Do you have a question?
Peace. What's good, family? This is your boy Solar Mind, and I am here live, family. So when you come in the building, hit the like button. When you come in the building, family. This is the Solar Vision Debate League, and we got a marquee matchup tonight, family. Chris MVP Harris is in the building. Anonymous Hebrew is in the building. So when you come in the building, hit the like button. When you come in the building, family, this should be a good debate. The much anticipated debate between the two brothers. Did the Exodus happen according to the biblical narrative? And Anonymous Hebrew have to prove that the Pharaoh was Tutmos. So this should be a good debate tonight, family. I got some things that I want to show tonight, you know what I'm saying, before we get started. The up and coming schedule. We have a very interesting week here on Solar Vision Debate League. We got some marquee matchups lined up for the family. So if you're about that debate life, this is where you want to be. Boy, let's check out the lineup. What we got going on here to Nizite. As what you already know, we got Anonymous Hebrew and Chris Harris in the building. Tomorrow, we got Domo going off against Israel Doctrine. Now, you already know that they are beefing right now. You know what I'm saying? You know that there's a beef between these two brothers. So you already know that's going to be lit. Battle Axe. The surprise of the Solar Vision Debate League. Y'all slept on Battle Axe. I told y'all about Battle Axe, bro. I warned y'all niggas about Battle Axe. He's going up against Amayan. Alright? So that'll be on the 8th, this Thursday. Claim Your Inheritance will be going up against Zadok on Friday. And Yamba Ya'u will be squaring off against Sosa on Saturday. Sunday, Anonymous Hebrew will be back in the building going up against Blue. So Anonymous have a very busy week. You know? So, with that being said, let's bring the debaters on for tonight and get this thing started. What's going on? Anonymous Hebrew.
Yo, peace, family. Shalom, everybody. Listen, obviously, as always, come in, all praise to the Most High. Peace to the tanks, you know what I'm saying? Tanks on the ground. Peace to Solar for giving us this opportunity to come in and do it. And obviously, you know what I'm saying? Thank you to the champ. Thank you for the opportunity. All the pleasantries out the way, though. Let's get it popped.
All right. And we got Chris MVP Harris in the building, the reigning Solar Vision Debate League champion. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Solar? Ready to make it happen. Let's make it happen.
All right. So what y'all should already know, we're going with a standard. Well, no, it's a customized format for tonight's debate. We got a 5-minute opening, 10-minute premise, as a 15-minute rebuttal. Correct me if I'm wrong. A 10-minute rapid fire piece, and then we have a 5-minute closing. So who's going first for tonight? Call it out.
I'm going first.
All right. So, are y'all ready? All right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 5 minutes. And we're going to get into this whole thing. It is on you, Anonymous Hebrew. Whenever you're ready, you could begin your opening, brother.
Yo, y'all can see my joint? Yeah, it should be. Bet. I'm on it. Hold on. My bad. You can see it now? What in the hell? Yeah, we should be straight now. Good. Hold on, let me set my timer. 5 minutes, right? All right, let's go. All right, did the Exodus happen according to the biblical narrative? And of course, I must prove Thutmose III to be the Pharaoh of the Exodus. This is really going to happen, all right, family? So let's just go ahead and get it popping. First, all right, in this debate, the Bible is the authority. I know people don't want to say that, but the Bible is the authority because the Exodus happens in the biblical narrative. So simply understand that I'm coming in just retelling the story of the biblical narrative. Of course, I will be using science, so I'll give you historical, anthropological, and archaeological proof, right? But the science is only working to give you reference points to solidify dates. The stratigraphy comes in because it will confirm the biblical narrative. This is not about consensus, right? And we'll deal with that because by that reckoning, we can't even trust history. If I come in and I tell you that history, that the Egyptian timeline has no consensus, we're not going to throw it out, are we? Of course not. We're going to keep going. It's not about anachronisms either, even though I'll be glad to deal with that as well. Red herrings and appeal to authority will not work tonight. And guess what? This is not about tearing down anyone's ancestors. This is simply us looking into the book, seeing what happened, and then bringing the archaeological science to support the narrative. All right, let's get it. Clearly, the Bible shows you that 480 years from the time of Solomon, or before the time of Solomon, is when the Exodus happened. Right? And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, so on and so forth. So we know 480 years. So let's do some quick math. You're going to see this all night, family. Look down at the bottom. Solomon's temple was 970. I want the judges to understand this. 970 plus 480 puts us right at 1450. There's only one person that can be in Pharaoh at that time, and that's Thutmose III. So for all intents and purposes, I've already set the debate. All right, he understands when Solomon's temple is. We know what consensus says. We can play with that all night. But we clearly know once we get to 1450, we're only talking about the 18th dynasty and the time frame of Thutmose III. Let's keep it popping. Now, the Exodus also says in Exodus chapter 12 that 430 years before that, they came into Egypt. All right, so now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. So now we have two bookends, okay? Look at the top of the screen, you got 1880. Then if you look at the time of the Exodus, 1450. These are our bookends, family. These are the time frames that I need you to focus on, because this is what I'm going to take you through. From Exodus chapter 1 all the way to Exodus chapter 2 is about 280 years, really. It's really 250 years plus, you know what I'm saying, depending upon what time frame you're going to go in. I'm not going to get into specific years because we're going into antiquity. We could lose 10 years like that. So I'm going to use nice round numbers for you. Now, let's get a couple things straight. First, Moses was 80 years old when he spoke to Pharaoh. These things become imperative because once we start setting the narrative, you need to know this. Moses was 80 years old when he spoke to Pharaoh. All right. So that means that Moses would have been about 80 years old at the time of 1450. So if you track 1450, that means he was born in 1530. You see where I'm going with this. Hatshepsut has to be Pharaoh's daughter. All right. This is simple. Moses was 40 years old when he fled. So that means when he flees to Midian, he was 40 years old. So that means he spends 40 years in Egypt. Okay, these things are very imperative. So like I said, Exodus 1 is going to cover over 250 years. Now, really quick, once again, 1880 to 1450. And when we really get at it, it's going to be 1450 to 1530. Those are going to be our time frames. All right. Now, we're going to cover the end of the 13th dynasty, when Joseph dies, the rise of the Hyksos, the proto-Israelites when they start to multiply, and then I'm going to get into my premise and really break this down, okay? But I want you to understand this. Like, when I first get started, I'm going to set the narrative for you. I'm going to explain to you where we are in history. I'm going to give you a nice, clean story, and then I'm going to run through the Exodus for you. I'm going to run through it and lay it down. Anything that I don't cover, I'll gladly come back and cover in my rebuttal, right? It's going to be up to my opponent to come and discredit this. He says that he can beat it up in 4 minutes. I'm very anxious to see that, because according to the biblical narrative, not only did this happen, it happened according to the way that these people said it. You're not getting around it. You can't go over it. You can't get under it. You can't go around it. Tonight, we're going to fight right in the middle of the ring. And you're going to have to explain to me why the Bible puts it right at 1450. And everybody else that says anything else, you either got poor hermeneutics or you just don't want to admit the truth. I'm Anon, a.k.a. A-Unity, a.k.a. the destroyer of false gods. I'm here all night, family. Let's go.
Uh-oh. So we got Anonymous. That was his opening round. So, I don't know. Let's see how this thing turns out. We're going to swing this thing over to Chris MVP Harris. You got 5 minutes, brother, to do your thing. It is on you, Chris Harris. Whenever you're ready, you could begin.
All right, Solo, let me get my screen share up, because he's failed miserably already. Let's get that screen share up. So share.
All right.
All right. So tonight, family, we putting the Exodus on trial. As y'all can see, Anonymous Hebrew has already failed in his quest to prove the Exodus. Solomon's temple only exists within the biblical narrative. There is no archaeological proof on Solomon's temple. You would have to show archaeological evidence in order to sustain that premise and use that date of 480 years. But we're going to deal with all that. All the dates put forward by advocates of the historicity of the Exodus fail to correspond to any period of national chaos or collapse in Egypt, as would clearly be expected by such a series of disasters. The 15th century BCE date corresponds with the time of ambitious Egyptian expansion. The reign of Hatshepsut was stable, peaceful, and saw extensive construction process and trading missions. This is known from actual material remains as well as Egyptian records. Her successor, Thutmose III, took Egypt to the greatest imperial extent, forging an empire from the Euphrates to the 4th and 5th cataract. These are not the signs of a nation that just a few years before has lost its entire harvest, its drinkable water, its army, and its sons, a la the firstborn crisis. There is no archaeological evidence at all of mass death and impoverishment in the early New Kingdom period. The same holds true for the period of Ramses II, although there were a few brief reigns after Meneptah and what appears to be an attempt to interfere with the line of succession, the Chancellor Bay affair. There's no evidence of a national catastrophe. Not long after, during the reign of Ramses III, the state was still able to construct numerous massive monuments, such as Medinet Habu and the Temple of Ramses III within the Karnak complex, and mount effective military campaigns on both land and sea. Anonymous is going to use revisionism tonight, people. Anonymous is going to use Manfred B. Tech tonight, people. Anonymous is not going to stay within the biblical time frame, people. And I'm going to show you that he's not using the Bible as authority, but white European Christian scholars. He will not use one Jewish source. He will not use a Hebrew source, but instead he will appeal to authority the entire night in this debate. My stance is simply an affirmative no. It could not have happened under the reign of Thutmose or any of the 18th dynastic kings. The time from Ramses II to Thutmose III is over 248 years apart. And we're going to deal with the anachronisms in the text because the anachronisms give the text its context. So we're not going to get pseudo here and stick with the Hebrew Israelite shucklebucking. I'm in this ring all night. I'm the champion here. I picked this book apart last year, and I'm going to do it tonight. Let's make this happen. Team Osiris is on the horizon.
All right. So looks like we got a fight on our hands, family. What we're going to do is take a brief intermission, and we're going to get back to the meat and potatoes of the debate, which will be the premise round. So we'll see you on the other side. This is the Solar Vision Debate League. Man, if you want the up-to-minute information on how to start a business, subscribe to Kansu Seshmu Aman's channel on YouTube. He gives you information on how to start a grant, how to form a non-profit organization, and how to get your credit score up to an 850. So once again, subscribe to his channel. That's Kansu Seshmu Aman on YouTube. In fact, I'll make it easy for you. Just hit the link located in the description box on this page. It'll take you to his channel, and then hit the notification sign so you can be updated on when he go live. Once again, Kansu Seshmu Aman's page on YouTube. Get your business up, family. Now it's time to get into the premise round. We're going to start out with Anonymous Hebrew.
Hey, so before I get started, he gave up 2 minutes. Can I have those?
No. Come on, bro. What are you talking about?
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to hand the thing over to you. You got 10 minutes for your premise round, family. Whenever you're ready, you can begin doing your thing. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes.
No, I got 15 minutes. We got 15. We agreed to 15.
Oh, so you want 15 minutes on the premise round, not the rebuttal?
Yeah, on the premise. He said not on the rebuttal, on the premise.
Okay. All right, no doubt. So you got 15 minutes to do your thing, brother. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 15 minutes. It is on you. Whenever you're ready, you can begin your premise round, brother.
All right. So, listen, family. We're going to spend all night in this place called Avaris. Welcome to Avaris, all right? I'm going to bring you in here, and he's right. I am going to use Manfred B. Tech because Manfred B. Tech is the foremost authority as it pertains to the place where these people were. Why wouldn't I use him? Let's go. Avaris is going to cover over a millennium of time frame, okay? But I'm going to keep it nice. I'm only going to deal with about 300 years, right? In addition, Tel El-Adaba has revealed a rich stratigraphy of occupational debris dating from the beginning of the 12th dynasty to the Ramesside and 3rd intermediary periods, okay? So that means that this settlement has been there since the time of what? The B'nai Hassan mural, okay? And I'm going to bring that out. But this is also something that I need you to understand, all right? Especially for the judges. This is more for the judges, not so much for my opponent or anyone else. This is a stratigraphy map. This map explains the occupation of this area, and it's going to line up exactly with the biblical narrative. And guess what, family? It wasn't no oppression by no doggone Thebians. It was the Hyksos who oppressed these people. Now, first thing we need to understand, there are two types of Asiatics that we are dealing with when we get to this area. You got nomads from Canaan, all right? This is your B'nai Hassan mural showing these nomads coming in here, right? Now, according to what B-Tech says, most likely nomads who had entered Egypt via the Nile Delta, okay? These are nomads that first come in. And then after that, we see urbanized Syro-Palestinian. Judges understand that. All right, we got nomads and Palestinians. These Palestinians were all about conquesting. B-Tech goes so far as to say that they were probably there to colonize the area. While some of the Asiatics who settled in Tel El-Adaba may originally have been nomads, most seem to come from an urban background. Certainly, the custom of placing the cemeteries within the settlement is not nomadic, and we will address that in the rebuttal if he dares touches that. All right. Now, he says this. There was one question then. Why did these people come in here? He said probably for colonization. If so, then we may link this movement with the settlement of Canaanites in Tel El-Adaba and view it as a part of the same process of colonization. These are the Hyksos family. There's a difference between the Eligaritan or the nomadic Canaanites that come in and what we're dealing with as it pertains to these urbanized people. Now, we understand in the first chapter that Joseph dies, okay? Joseph died and all his brethren and all that generation. These are the nomadic proto-Israelite multiplication. I heard echoes. Please get that straight, all right? So Joseph died and all his brethren. And then it says, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mightily. Understand, family, for somebody to wax exceeding mightily, that is a generation at least. So now we're talking about a time frame. We're talking about time has passed. This is what I'm telling you. Exodus chapter 1 covers over 250 years. And you'll understand that as soon as I get to the birth of Moses. All right. So like he said, the 12th dynasty down to the Ramesside period. I want you to understand that. Now we're talking about the rise of the Hyksos. In this same article that he wrote, the urban development of Avaris shortly before and during the Hyksos period. I want you to see that. Okay. Now this is what he explains, that there's hard bondage and we got Ramesses, right? There arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. The reason he didn't know Joseph, because Joseph died in 1807. We don't get to the rise of the Hyksos king till about 1620 or somewhere in that time frame, right? So when we get to that, that is your new king that knew not Joseph, that wanted to come in and colonize. Now, I'm going to run through this now, okay? As I said, in strata F3E2, that's just a fancy way of saying during the Hyksos period, the originally egalitarian settlement pattern becomes socially differentiated. It's important to note. So what I'm telling you is it's going to go from nomadic to urban, back to nomadic, and that's going to become important because these people remain there after the Hyksos leave. That's right. So what happens is once they come and take them over, this is all happening in Exodus chapter 1, they become overlords over these nomadic people. The dependence of these upper class inhabitants clustered around the houses of their overlords. Now, Exodus 1:11. Therefore, he did set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they bid Pharaoh treasure cities. Pit them in Ramesses. Oh my goodness. Is this an anachronism? No, bro. This is continuity. It is overwhelming evidence from many seasons of excavation that that has finally changed the general opinion of scholars. He says today, Avaris and Ramesses are identified with Tel El-Adaba, meaning this is the same place. And I'm going to even show you in my rebuttal how even as far as during the Ramesside period, they were still calling this place Avaris, the harbor of Avaris, and Ramesses. They've been calling it this the whole time. We obviously see another multiplication, right? It says, but the more they afflicted them, the more they grew. Guess what? The stratigraphy lines up with that. There was no longer any space for open cemeteries within the settlement. That means that they started to multiply during the time of the Hyksos. That's all you see. Now, Exodus 2 is going to cover over 40 years. Let's get it. All right, now we're dealing with the birth of Moses. I told you, the birth of Moses comes. It says, a woman conceived and bore a child. Here we go. When doubt, pull the timeline out. All right, Solomon's temple comes. Moses is born around 1530. Who did I tell you was that? That was Hatshepsut. Watch this. Pharaoh's daughter, Exodus 2 and 5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself in the river. Her maidens walked along the river beside her. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. That's Hatshepsut. She's the only person that would have been alive at this time that would have been considered Pharaoh's daughter. See what I'm doing? I'm not shoehorning people. I'm showing you the biblical narrative and showing you how it all lines up. From there, we get to Thutmose I and Thutmose II. All right, those are the two next pharaohs after that. Obviously, Thutmose I is the father of Hatshepsut. All right, moving forward. Now, Thutmose II is her husband. I want you to understand that. Now, here is my person for Moses, because I knew he was going to go here. Let's get it out the way early. We are saying that Moses is Senemu. He is the only person who is on the scene that this can be. All right, Senemu is the only person. Let's give you a brief bibliography. All right, Senemu was born of low birth. All right, he had a noble or regular low-class parents. He had Ramos and Hatnefer. All right, but despite that, he was raised in the kingdom. He grew up with Hatshepsut, and then he becomes a steward of the king, just like Moses did. Right. He originally entered during Thutmose II's reign under Hatshepsut and would hold eventually over 80 titles. Watch this. But at some point in time, around 1486, Senemu disappears completely off the scene, never to be found again. I wonder why. I'll show you in a second. So this is Senemu's resume. I'm going to show you Moses' resume. We already know. He was born. He got picked up by the Pharaoh's daughter. He grew up in that place, and then next thing you know, he's overseeing it. So if you look, they both had parents that were peasants. They were humble born. They were raised in Pharaoh's house. They worked as chief stewards. They're contemporary with Hatshepsut and Thutmose III. They disappeared, never to be seen again, and both were called priests, and they had brothers that were priests. Let's keep it moving. Now, Moses flees to Midian. All right, this is what it says. This is where you start to get your conversation about the Shasu Yahu, which Amenhotep writes. Amenhotep III writes on the Solid Temple. All right, this is why he says that, because this is where Moses fled to. He fled to Midian. Now, after this, Moses flees over there and he gets a message from God. We know this is something that happens in his mind. We're not going to play with this mythos tonight, right? So Thutmose III takes over, and now this is where we end up at. Exodus 4:19, and the Lord said to Moses, go, because those people are dead. Now, you're going to want to ask, why don't we see anything about the Moses figure coming back? I told you, because Senemu ran away, and then what did they do? This is something called damnatio memoriae. Keep this in mind, family. In imperial ancient Rome, damnatio memoriae signified the opposite of deification, meaning they wanted to wipe these people off the walls. And guess what? The true memory of Senemu and Hatshepsut has been wiped off the walls. At least they tried to. This is Hatshepsut's red chapel. You see her being wiped off, and I can go through a plethora of other ones. I just wanted to give you a quick one because I got like another 5 minutes. So let's deal with the plagues. I'm not going to go through the plagues one by one. My opponent can bring up which plagues he wants to devour or tear apart, and we'll beat those up in the rebuttal. All right. But here is my premise for how the plagues happen. All right. This is an article by Paolo Trubarino and a bunch of other people. They explain how the Santorini volcano has been dated wrong. And because of the Santorini volcano, this is what creates what we call the limnic eruption. All right. This limnic eruption has been responsible for destroying all types of things. But at the end of the day, what we see is it causes everything. Right. It will give you everything from destruction of wildlife, destruction of livestock. It will bring all of the plagues that you see down to killing humans because of the noxious gas that will be exposed, that will be released from the lake. All right. Now, how does this line up? The only narrative that we have with that is the Ippara Papyrus. All right. It is the Ippara Papyrus. Right. If you read the Ippara Papyrus, everything in it lines up. Now, there are some things that disagree. It should be. It's coming from the Egyptian narrative. It's not coming from the Hebraic narrative. In the Ippara Papyrus, this is the only thing that we can see that will even line up. And I challenge my opponent to tell me, if this is not talking about it, show me what else is talking about the largest volcanic destruction that we see in history in this area. He's going to have to deal with that if he wants to come and attack the Ippara Papyrus. Let's keep it moving. Now, I know what y'all want to see. Where was the mass exodus at? This is why you start to read stratigraphy. This is the abandonment of Avaris. Now, as I told you, you had nomads, they became urban, then they go back to being nomads. This is Dr. Petrovich. He is a PhD from Toronto. Call him what you want to call him. The boy got skills. You can't beat him. Now, he takes a study that Manfred Bitech did, and then he goes over it as well, and this is what he starts to explain. In the present study, they're going to express the abandonment of Avaris that occurred during the middle of the 18th dynasty. How do you explain that? This is the abandonment that happens during the middle of the 18th dynasty, right? From the reign of Thutmose I through Amenhotep, we clearly see a palatial compound that was there. Then all of a sudden, these people, like he just said out of his own mouth, they're making all of this money. This is height of the kingdom. Why then do all of a sudden they abandon the biggest harbor that they have? Oh my goodness. This is what they say. A mysterious occupational hiatus then occurs, an abandonment of the palatial district that Bitech attributes to the time after Amenhotep II. So what you see happening is these people come out of there, and then all of a sudden Egypt has to come out of there. And we're going to deal with what Amenhotep II does. He has to run a whole slave campaign to go replace the slave labor. Now, evidence for the first Passover. That's right, family. We ain't playing. Now, Exodus 1:22 says it came to pass. Oh, that's the wrong verse. All right, so what we see is, as it pertains to the Exodus, they were told to get the goats and the lambs ready, and then they would kill them in their first year of life. All right, a large number of animal burials were found in the palatial district. This burial includes dogs, cattle, but the majority consisted of sheep and goats. But they don't stop there. Some of these sheep and goats were adults, but most of them died in their first year of life. You got to explain to me now, family, why do we see all of this stuff happening? I'm going to go over that in a second. Bitech concludes that these sheep and goats were tended by shepherds who inhabited the site during the time of the occupational gap, which he's talking about after the time of the Hyksos. Then he says, he further thought that if these shepherds were nomads, they were most likely from the Sinai, not from the coastal plains or where we see the Syro-Palestinians. They're not from there. They're from Sinai. Now, he talks about another anachronism. So the Philistines, all right? Now we're going to deal with ancient Ascalon, all right? This is where you get your Philistines from. This is a DNA article that reveals that the origins of the ancient Philistines go back to ancient Ascalon. That's your map right there, so you can see that. Because I know what he was going to go to dealing with that. All the rest of the stuff he can have fun with. Now, this is the last thing, the parting of the Red Sea. All right, a PhD gentleman, he's a physicist by the name of Colin Humphreys, has done all of this work. He explains that the book of Exodus refers to a strong east wind that blew back the waters. Not somebody just sticking there and making it happen, right? The only place that this could have happened would have been the Gulf of Aqaba. The Gulf of Aqaba, and then you have the Straits of Tiran. I will deal with that in the rebuttal if he dares address this as well. You have the Straits of Tiran. So what happened is you have a strong wind that comes and blows all night, and it's able to blow these things in either direction and open up a way for them to walk through. It is called a wind tide event. All right, that's what it is. This is simple, period, point blank, and simple. Now, I'm going to give you a quick recap. You see, I ran through this thing in 14 minutes. Honestly, 13 and a half. This thing is simple, family. There's no shoehorning. There's no plan. We see these people come in. We see them get mass multiplication. We find out who all the players are on the field. We know who Hatshepsut is. We know who Moses is. We know who Thutmose III is. We know all of these things now, right? And there's no shoehorning. All he's going to do is run around and give you all types of attacks, but not address the timeline, not address the information that I brought out. It is up to him to come and try to tear apart the narrative, not try to create something else. Notice, I didn't go outside of the Bible. I didn't say, oh, this is not what the Bible. I told you the explanations for what the Bible said. I kept it strictly with the science and the Bible. I didn't get on my religious high horse. I didn't proselytize to you. I showed you strictly what it said. My opponent's job now is to come and destroy that so I can come and beat it back up, or he needs to go ahead and admit that I have proved not only that the Exodus happened according to the biblical narrative, I even showed you the abandonment of the place where these people were, right? Now, he has to show not only that it didn't happen according to the biblical narrative, but that Thutmose III wasn't the Pharaoh. Because I clearly show you the only time that this could have happened would have been during the time of Thutmose III. And that's a wrap. There's nothing else to talk about. I dare him to play with the rest of this because we're going to get funky in the rebuttal. I tell you what, family. I tell you what. I'm here all night. I am here all night. Shalom. That's my time. I still got more time. I'll keep going. You there, Solar?
Oh, my bad. I had it on mute. Shout out to Anonymous Hebrew, Chris Harris. It is on you, brother. It is your time to shine for your premise round. Whenever you're ready, you can begin your premise, brother.
All right, let me get my screen share up. Okay, as you guys can see, he's made a couple fatal mistakes here, but I'll deal with all that in my rebuttal. And he's doing what we call an appeal to authority. He's not even using his biblical narrative, but yet Anonymous cites that the Bible is the authority. He's doing as I expected he would do, and that's try to shoehorn the biblical narrative into the Egyptian narrative or into the African Nile Valley narrative. Now, Thutmose was born around 1458, around 425 BCE. Ramses II is born in around 1279 and reigned all the way to 1213 BCE, which is the 13th century. So you got one person in the 15th century and one person living in the 13th century. Let's see why that means something according to the biblical narrative. Moses also lived in the 15th, according to the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, the 15th to the 14th century is when he was born. Okay, but this makes absolutely no sense since the story of Ramses, it says that they built the city of Ramses in the 13th century BCE. Let's deal with some anachronisms here. Now, Exodus 1 and 11, he kind of alluded to it, but he didn't really deal with it properly. It says, this is what the writer writes, because they'll tell you Moses didn't write it, but then they'll say he did. But let's see what it says. Exodus 1 and 11 says, therefore they set their taskmasters over to afflict them with burdens, and they built for the Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Now, Ramses, the city of Ramses was built in the 13th century BCE. So if you, in fact, came out in the 15th century BCE, you all would not be there to build the city of Ramses, bro. You guys were already gone. The anachronism that you claim is giving your story its context. But you went with man from B-Tech. He didn't explain any of this. Let's look at some more anachronisms. Now, Genesis 26 and 1 is real funny. Isaac and Abraham went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. Now, this is funny because the Philistines don't show up into the 12th century BCE. This is when they show up, but yet their progenitors are right here talking to the Philistines. Makes absolutely no sense. Let's see what it says. In Genesis 26 and 1, the Philistines are encountered. But as I stated previously, it wasn't until the 1200 BCE that the Philistines settled on the coastal plain of Canaan, Gerar. A Philistine city is also mentioned in Genesis 20 and 1. But excavations show this was just a small village in the Iron Age 1 family. Excuse me. Let me present this a little bit bigger. I think this is a little bit too small. Forgive me. All right. Let me hide this right here. Sorry about that, gentlemen. Let me hide this. All right. Now let's look at Exodus 13 and 17, because he's not using the biblical narrative. He's shoehorning. He even shoehorned with the Senamut nonsense. Exodus 13 and 7, it clearly tells you when the Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not the way of the land of the Philistines. Although that was near, for God said, lest you peradventure the people repent when they see war and return to Egypt. As we can see, the writer of these texts is expressing themes in the 12th century BCE, not the 15th or 16th century BCE. That you failed on that, bro. Now, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary explicitly reads, this is the Exodus definition, the event that terminated the sojourn in Egypt, the departure from Egypt under Moses, the biblical record. One more time. Exodus 13 and 7 says that Israel did not take a direct route through the Philistine country to Canaan. So if they left out in the 15th century under Thutmose, why are they dodging Philistines? Thutmose knows nothing about the Philistines. And this story, the writer is certainly not expressing events in the 15th century BCE. Let's continue on. One more time. Philistines on arrive into the 12th century BCE. Now, the book of Numbers gives a list of sites at which the Hebrews allegedly settled in Sinai and its immediate surroundings. During the Exodus of these sites, a select few can be pinpointed relatively well by description and deduction. The two sites such as biblical Kadesh Barnea, modern Ain Kadesh, and Ezion Geber on the Israeli side of the border between Israel and Jordan, just outside the Eilat. Both sites have been investigated archaeologically and found to have been founded during the ancient Near Eastern Late Iron Age, no earlier than 700, 800 BCE. Whoa, now we got problems with the anachronisms in your story that give your story context. Let's look at this again. Numbers 33 and 35, and they journey from Abrona and encamped in Ezion Gezer. Ezion Gezer is another place reported to be camping, the place of the children of Israel. Now, excavations here in the years 1938 and 40 revealed impressive Iron Age remains, but no trace whatsoever of late Bronze Age occupation. From the long list of encampments in the wilderness, Kadesh Barnea, Ezion Geber are the only ones that can safely be identified, but yet they reveal no trace of wandering Israelites. Let's deal with this again, because your book is talking about things in the 12th century so far, in the 7th century BCE. So now you're in trouble because we don't see a 15th century narrative being spoken of here. It says in Exodus 23 and 31, this is what your deity says, and I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. The deity is speaking in this verse, and it's Yahweh that mentions the Philistines, not me, and definitely not Manfred B-Tech. He does not believe your book, son. Joshua 13 and 3. These are the things that Anonymous don't deal with, and this is what happens when you use revisionism. It goes against the biblical narrative. The biblical narrative to keep them safe. It says from Shihor, which is before Egypt. Skip down. This is what it says. The 5 lords of the Philistines. Once again, the Philistines are being mentioned. How could this be in the 15th century BCE? They don't get there archaeologically to the 12th century BCE. Rebut that. Now, the first known records of the Philistines are inscriptions and reliefs in the mortuary temple of Ramses III. Wait a minute, didn't y'all build that temple according to the biblical narrative, albeit it's no proof? It seems like the biblical narrative is trying to tell you something, but you did what? You appealed to authority with Manfred B-Tech. Now, the first inscriptions don't appear into the mortuary temple of Ramses III at Madinat Habu, where they appear under the name Preset or PRST as one of the sea peoples that invaded Egypt around 1190. Well, damn, there we go again with the 12th century BCE narrative. After ravaging Anatolia, Cyprus, and Syria, after being repulsed by the Egyptians, they settled, possibly with Egypt's permission, on the coastal plain of Palestine. This is what it is. It's the 12th century. You know, Tutmos, we don't deal with him too. Joshua 19 and 6. This is your biblical narrative. It says the second lot came forth to Simon, even for the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. I want y'all to pay attention to this. And Beth-Lebaoth and Shahurim, 13 cities and their villages. How could this have happened in the 15th century BCE? History tells us something completely different. Let's take a closer look at the city of Shahurim. Now, Shahurim was actually destroyed in preemptive warfare by the Egyptians. Now, the Egyptians of the 17th dynasty, we all know they felt sort of embarrassed and humiliated by the 15th and 16th dynastic rule of the Hyksos period. Now, the Theban dynasty, they were the ones that went to war. And one of their preemptive strikes was they raised hell on Shahurim. So if y'all left out in the 15th century BCE, y'all spent 40 years in the wilderness. Then y'all spent another 200 years in the land of Canaan under the judges, according to the biblical narrative. So essentially, y'all left Egypt and went right back up into Egypt, because Amos the first, he went back over there and conquered. He went right back over there and conquered. And this is what it says. Amenhotep's successor, Tutmosis I, who extended Egyptian influence as far as the Mitanni kingdom in the north and Mesopotamia in the east, pushing the borders of Egyptian empire farther than before. They marched right through there. Once again, you in trouble with that? Tutmosis III, widely considered a military genius by historians. He was an active expansionist ruler who's sometimes called Egypt's greatest conqueror or the Napoleon of Egypt. He's recorded to have captured over 350 cities during his rule and conquered much of the Near East from the Euphrates to Nubia. No military campaigns. He was the first pharaoh to cross the Euphrates, doing so during his campaigns against the Mitanni Empire. His campaign records were transcribed onto the walls of the Temple of Amun at Karnak, and now transcribed unto Urkudin VI. He is consistently regarded as the greatest of Egypt's warrior pharaohs, who transformed Egypt into an international superpower by creating an empire that stretched from southern Syria to Canaan to Nubia. Now, the Battle of Megiddo. Tutmosis captured Megiddo, but the Bible tells you that Joshua gave Megiddo to the Israelites.
Time. All right. Shout out to.
Was that 15 minutes, Solar?
What's that?
Was that 15 minutes?
Oh, you want 15 minutes too?
Yeah, get my 15 minutes. Don't cut me off.
All right, go do your thing. Do your thing. My bad. Do your thing.
Don't save him now. Don't save him, baby.
All right. Let me put 5 minutes on this bitch.
We're gonna deal with it.
I'll put 5 more minutes on this bitch. Go ahead.
Let's get it. Now, the Tutmosis III had a scribe by the name of Teheni. Now, this is what he writes down. I want y'all to listen to this now, because everything is in first person, because he's writing everything down as his king, a real savior, a real black man, is conquering these motherfuckers. Excuse me. Forgive me. The ancient Egyptian account gives the date of the battle as the 21st day of the first month of the third season of year 23 of the reign of Tutmosis III. It has been claimed that this was April 16th, 1457 BCE, according to the middle chronology. Although other publications place the battle in the early 15th century, 482 to 479 BCE. The Egyptians routed the Canaanite forces, which fled to safety in the city of Megiddo. The action resulted in a lengthy siege of Megiddo. Let's go for us real quick. Now, let's go. This is what Teheni writes. Then their horses and their chariots of gold and silver were captured as easy prey. Ranks of them were lying stretched out on their backs like fish in the bite of a net, while his majesty's victorious army counted up their possessions. Now there was captured that wretched enemy's tent, which was worked with silver. This is what he says. Then his majesty commanded his army with these words: capture ye effectively my victorious army. Behold, all foreign countries have been put in this town by the command of Ra. So we see Tutmosis conquering. Ain't no Yahweh beat him. Ain't no Moses fled from him. He ain't mentioning Moses. Orders were issued to the commanders of the troops to provide their divisions and inform each man his place. They measured the city, corralled the moat, and enclosed fresh timbers of all pleasant trees, while his majesty himself was in the forest east of the town being watchful. This is what he says. He ordered the town enclosed with a girded wall, that its name be called Menkaper. Ra is the corraller of the Asiatics. Notice how that's in first person. This is a first person account. Judges take note. That's called a primary. Let's see what else he writes. They took 340 living prisoners, cut off 83 hands, 2,000 something horses, 191 foals. Hey, you guys go check this out later. I ain't got a lot of time. Now, what? Let's deal with Exodus 1 and 16. You know what, Solar? That's my time. We're going to take that up in the rebuttal. With that being said, Team Osiris is on the horizon.
All right. You heard it first from the champion, Chris MVP Harris.
Man, never lost a battle.
We're going to go ahead and do the damn thing, keep this thing rocking and rolling. Get to the rebuttal. It's time to rebut. The camera's got to be on.
Man, I'm coming. Hold on. That was trash.
We're going to see the mannerisms and what is what.
Yeah.
The debate is
Be honest with you, bro. I might
allow me
share-
to do my job, Anonymous.
Oh, my fault.
We're going
I'm
to take
ready.
a brief intermission, family, and we're going to get into the rebuttal, family. Yeah. What's good, family? This is your boy Solar Mind, and here are the top 5 ranked debaters of the Solar Vision Debate League. We got some new inductees into the top 5. I urge every debater to try to make it at least one time, make it to the top 5 ranked debaters of the Solar Vision Debate League. Without further ado, here go the top 5, family. Number 5, Yahukinan.
He tried to give a false date for Eve. I brought up the genetic testing from 23andMe to show you that it gave Eve a time frame of 150,000 years ago. These are genetic professional companies. This is PhD geneticists that I'm showing you, not just freestyling off an article and making up timelines.
Number 4, Anpu.
Those Asian, let me address those Asiatics, right? We always see the normal pattern. We get normal pattern today. But I want to present this to you guys. Some of you may not have ever seen it. But this is Pharaoh Den, right? And Pharaoh Den is in the first dynasty. He's around 4 or 5 pharaohs after Norma. So he is in the same first dynasty, right? And look at what the scholarship says. This is another image that you can actually find, another artifact, rather, that you can actually find in the museum. The brother said I didn't present no primaries. He must not know what a primary is because my whole presentation been a primary, family.
Number 3, Minister Howe.
This right here is from Biola University right here. Watch this now. And I'm providing you sources. Watch this now. These are people that wasn't Israelites that God used. And I'm just going to go down. Watch this now. Right here. I want to go to Caleb. Did you know Caleb was not an Israelite? That he was a Kenizzite? He was one of the Canaanite tribes. But God used him to bring salvation. What about Rahab? She was a Canaanite prostitute. But God used her to save them when they came looking for him. Did you know that?
Number 2, Chris MVP Harris.
Because one of the things we must understand is when you're reading something, you must read it in its in the language that it was written in. All right, now there's no such thing as Hebrew language. That's the first thing we want to understand. That's the first thing we must grasp. But is when you hear a lot of guys talking about Hebrew, I know Hebrew, that's just a way to suck you into the cult mentality. All right, there's no such thing as a Hebrew language. It doesn't exist.
And once again, the number 1 debater of SVDL is Domo reclaiming his number 1 spot. He came back and is playing. Y'all debaters ain't debating the same. Shout out to Domo. He's a problem. Somebody got to deal with him. Once again, top ranked debater of SVDL.
Racists are those who, in a racist society, are able to benefit and empower that society. That is a particular, very clear position, not to be confused. Everybody cannot occupy the position of a racist. Remember, when we talk about the etymology of that term, I understand that my opponent ain't understanding some of my arguments, so let me help.
So family, there you have it. Those are the top ranked debaters in the Solar Vision Debate League. My advice to you guys that didn't make it yet, work on your PowerPoint. Step your delivery game up. God damn it, do some damn studying. And I repeat, don't be a goddamn hating ass debater. And if you do those things, maybe you can someday make it to the top 5 ranked debaters of the Solar Vision Debate League, the best debate league on social media. Alright, now we're about to get down to the meat and potatoes of the debate. I asked that both debaters cut the cameras on. We're going to get now into the rebuttal round. Anonymous Hebrew, it is on you. You have 10 minutes to do your thing, brother. Whenever you ready, you can begin your rebuttal. Are you muted? You're muted, brother.
Yeah, my fault. I got my timer. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
All right, let's go. All right, family, I'm going to share my screen in a second, but this was hot garbage. All right. First off, I already dealt with this Philistine comment. All right, this is trash. The brother clearly doesn't understand what a toponym is. Okay, so I'm going to show you that in a second. As I told you in my opening, right, Pyrameses is Avaris. This is clearly what the person who digs there says, not me. And that's not appealing to authority because he's actually showing it. And I actually looked at the stratigraphy and I looked at the work of it, right? So I'm showing you clearly why we see these names used in the Bible. Okay, it's just like when you look in Genesis and you see the name Ramesses in Genesis, the reason is because it was called Ramesses and Pyrameses and Avaris. Right? It doesn't matter what time frame you're looking at. Right? It doesn't matter where you're looking at. They're going to call that. This is what they would say. Oh, it's funny. Let's share the screen. Oh, okay, tell me why he said. Oh, that's cool. That's fine. Let me just beat you up with what I said. Because I already beat all this up. I mean, everybody knows this. I dealt with it all already. I dealt with everything that you was going to say already. So first off, here's what a toponym is. A place name, especially one derived from a topographical feature. All right? This is why they were calling it this. Watch this. Let's go back up here. I already dealt with this, man. The guy clearly tells you that Pyrameses is Avaris and vice versa, right? I'm really not even going to play no games with this. So the second part is, I'm going to show you how dishonest he is. So we talked in private before the thing, and we said we're not dealing with the Canaanite conquest, right? We agreed. We wouldn't deal with the Canaanite conquest because it's not a part of the Exodus. We're debating the Exodus. Get in the Exodus. None of these things, and then on top of that, he's in the wrong time period. He's talking about 1500. Brother, the Exodus happens around 1550, all right? They wander around for 40 years, and then they get ready to go ahead and go into conquering the land. So that puts them right around 1390 something, right? That's why you see this. That's why you see Amenhotep II going up on the Solomon Temple, saying that he collected 100,000 slaves. So here's the question you got to ask yourself. I already told you, I showed you how prosperous the Avaris harbor was. If this brother simply will use his brain and ask himself this question, if Thutmose III was killing it like that, why does Amenhotep II then have to go and take 100,000 slaves? Explain that to me. Why does he have to go get 100,000 slaves? And why do they abandon the place? Like, why do they clearly abandon Avaris? Right? He's going to have to address all of this, family. I dare him to address it. He won't touch it. I told you he's going to box around the fringe of the ring all evening. He has not once gone into any of the information that I said. Now, I know his rebuttal is coming up, but it would have just been nice to know that he was at least on top and knew what happened, right? The last thing I said was not the way of the Philistines. Then I explained to you, right? And I explained to you about ancient Ascalon. This is clear. DNA extracted from the remains of 10 individuals buried at Ascalon, an ancient Philistine port city in Israel, displays molecular links to the ancient and modern populations in the Eastern Mediterranean. He's done. All right, we done with that. Don't even play. The brother will not address any of these things, right? He definitely ain't going to address this. Watch this. And I'll read it to you one more time because I think y'all missed it. So now I got a little bit more time to sit here and really deal with this. This is the abandonment of Avaris. Okay? Avaris, in case y'all don't understand, is Goshen. It's the place where they were. So as we get into this, Douglas Petrovich, PhD from Toronto, once again, call it what he wants you. Now I'm going to read it to you. The present study will focus on a much smaller matter, which has received only limited attention, the timing of the abandonment of Avaris that occurred during the middle of the 18th dynasty. If they killing it and they so prosperous, why are they walking away from all of that money? The dating of the palatial compound is based on ceramic evidence that stretches from the reign of Thutmose I to Amenhotep II. So what they're telling you is there is ceramic pottery in the ground that dates to this time frame. And he's telling you clearly that they just walked out of this place. And then they tell you this. There's a mysterious occupational hiatus then that occurs in abandonment of the palatial district that BTEC attributes to a time after Amenhotep. So that means that after these people walk out, they dipped. They dipped. If you're so prosperous and you're just doing so well, why do you walk away from Pyramesses, your harbor city? This is your port city. And I'm going to show you that in a second. I'm going to show you that in the last 3 minutes of my rebuttal because I want you to understand this, okay? This is a stratigraphy map, family, all right? This is how we know what happened. If you look here on the left, you see all the time. If you look here in the middle, this is the Hyksos. This is when they come in. Obviously, like I told you, you see all this expansion, all of these little boxes on the hillside, little boxes. All these little boxes are dealing with the expansion of people. And then all of a sudden, once the Hyksos get ran out of there, there's a big gap in here, and they all hover around here, right here in the Citadel place. And then all of a sudden, those people still leave. They get up and they walk out. But before they walk out, they cut up a bunch of baby goats and sheep, which is what the Bible says. I already dealt with the rest of this, right? He's talking about going to this place and going to that place, Numbers and Judges and Genesis. Bro, we in the Exodus. I would like for you to join me at some point in time so we can have a conversation about it. Now, let's deal with this last part because he don't know none of this. This boy don't know none of it. Where my articles at? I gotta keep some of this on the low because I don't want y'all in all my articles. I know y'all. Some of y'all gonna try to take my stuff. I'm watching y'all. All right. Peru Nefer, the principal New Kingdom naval base. This is where the New Kingdom set up. This is where Amos set up. This is where Thutmose III set up. And this is where Amenhotep II set up. Okay? I'm going to show you a bunch of little stuff. And it didn't come up. But that's fine because we got a whole bunch more of them on deck. Let me pull them up. But the issue that he fails to understand is that he cannot show you that the Exodus didn't happen. So he's trying to make it about everything else. He's trying to make it about wandering around and trying to find some stuff in the desert and all of this craziness. Nah, family, it ain't about none of that. It's about the Exodus. He wants to play around with dates, and I gave you a solid dating. I gave you a hardcore, solid time frame that he will not touch. Now, can y'all see my screen, Solar? All right, you see the Perry Nefer? The Perry Nefer, the principal New Kingdom naval base? Nah, okay. And that's what I was worried about because I thought it didn't come up. All right, stop. We're going to bring it right back. But what the brother cannot do is he cannot address anything that I said. So he's going to keep playing with anachronisms. Well, you got to tell me why we don't see anachronisms in there. We clearly understand that these teams were written sometime or redacted or rewritten sometime in the 5th, 6th century. But the crazy part is it lines up with history. It lines up exactly with history. So there's nothing else you're going to do. And now I'm going to beat you up with Perry Nefer for the last minute and a half. You can see it now, Solar? There. All right. So this is the naval base where they set up at. In the New Kingdom, the structure right here is where they was getting money. Get money. Right? So they're getting all this money. All of this area right here. All of this harbor. You see what it says, Avaris? This is right off the Talusak branch of the Nile River. So they're running all type of stuff in here. All type of trade. All type of olive oil. All type of silk coming in here. Then all of a sudden, they just leave. They just walk out. Why do they just walk out? Because those people left. They lost their slave labor. Thutmose III was done. He ran his last campaign down to the Nubians. And then you see Amenhotep II come in. And after that, it's over. Right? You don't see anything else happening to the time of Amenhotep III, and he's running around trying to make treaties with everybody. Because, yeah, Thutmose III was a head buster. But Egypt, the account of the Exodus is not talking about coming in, killing Thutmose III. That's not what it says at all. Right? I showed you how this would have happened. I showed you the limit of corruption. He didn't even touch that. There's no other reason for me to keep talking at this point other than to let you know that I need to drive my point home that the Exodus happened according to the biblical narrative, and he has not and will not address it. He's going to keep talking for the next 10 minutes and throw anachronism after anachronism and all of this craziness, but he's not going to deal with the true nature of the debate. That's my time, family. I thank y'all. This was too easy.
All right. Now it's time for Chris Harris. You got 10 minutes to do your thing. It is time for you to rebut Anonymous Hebrew's information, brother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes and allow you, Chris Harris, to do your thing. All right? So whenever you're ready, brother, you can begin your rebuttal.
All right, so I'm gonna show everybody that is not Thutmose according to the biblical narrative real quick, and I'm gonna end this in real 4 minutes. I'm gonna address everything that he said in his premise. I want the judges, I want the commissioner, and I want the entire audience to know he never addressed anything in his rebuttal, but he instead brought in another premise and more information, trying to sustain his argument. He never rebutted anything. He's bringing up all this other stuff that is never even mentioned in the biblical narrative. He even brought up pre-new effort. It's not mentioned in the biblical narrative. And actually, he's using, like I said, he's continuing to appeal to authority. He even used the fallacy of etymology in this argument, which was horrible. So what I want to do here, I'm going to show everybody that it was not Thutmose, because I asked him, was it Thutmose that suffered from these curses? Now, in Exodus 1 and 16, it tells, I'm going to start at Exodus 2 and 23. Exodus 2 and 23, Moses left and came back. This brother said from Exodus chapter 1, it's dealing with 250 years. And that's bull. It says in Exodus 2 and 23, the king clearly died. That's what made Moses come back in. Now, everybody who knows the king's list of the 18th dynastic period, the king before Thutmose III was in fact Hatshepsut. So in Exodus 1 and 16, it clearly tells you, and he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. Now in Exodus 1 and 16, this apparently is the king that put the Hebrews to work. That made them build the city of Pi-Ramses. He never showed a commission of Hatshepsut telling them to build the city of Ramses, and the Ramesside kings ain't mentioned for another 248 years. That's a death blow. That's a death blow, because this king right here is a man, not a woman. And whoever wrote this should have known that the king before Thutmose III was in fact a queen. And she held Egypt down until he sat on the throne and ruled. Now, I also want to deal with the fact that he brought up Amenhotep III. Now, the biblical plague clearly tells you that God killed all the firstborn sons. But Amenhotep is, in fact, a firstborn son of a woman named Merit Amun. He's the firstborn son of that woman, so I guess God missed. It said he killed all the firstborn sons. Thutmose had multiple wives. Thutmose III had multiple wives. So if he killed all the firstborn, Amenhotep should not have been alive. That's game over right there. Let's deal with this Ramos nonsense that you brought up. This dude, man, pseudo. Let's bring with this this Senetmut nonsense he brought up. Now, Senetmut, here's the funny thing. Senetmut had a mother and father by the name of Ramos and Hotnefer. Moses' father name was Amram and Jochebed. So this is clearly not the same person. Not to mention that Senetmut was in fact an architect in Egypt. He was an architect. Moses was a priest. So just because you're born to a lowly family, that don't make you no Israelite. That don't mean you a Hebrew. It clearly tells you who Moses' parents were. And it clearly tells you, had you done some real research, who Senetmut's parents were. Pseudo. Let's deal with what else you brought up. You brought up 1 Kings chapter 6 and 1, dealing with what we call the that thing mentioned about 480 years in Solomon's temple. You never even proved Solomon's temple existed. There's no archaeological evidence that has shown that Solomon's temple existed. It is strictly found in the literary work of the Bible. This is why y'all try to backdate it all the way to the 15th century BCE or during the time of Tutmos. That don't make no sense. Let's see what else you brought up. You also brought up Joseph. You can't even prove Joseph existed. So all he did, y'all, was he brought up, what he did was, y'all, he mentioned, all he did was try to find holes in Egyptian armor and then somewhat stick the biblical narrative in there, and he never addressed it. So let's go back over some of the things he never addressed because he's trying to get away from it. Let's see what he didn't address. He never addressed how the Israelites were able to conquer Shahuraim, which was an Egyptian stronghold during the 15th century, all the way up into the 12th century BCE. It was an Egyptian stronghold. It didn't begin to collapse until the Philistines came into the picture. And this is where you get the Dark Age from. Anonymous, you should have known that. He never addressed the fact that Abraham was in fact in speaking or in contact with Philistine kings. He never addressed the fact, why was Joshua in contact with Philistine kings? Philistines don't come around until the 12th century BCE. This is called addressing my argument. You didn't do that. I'm going to tell the judges again, you didn't even stick to the biblical narrative. Nothing you mentioned in your premise has anything to do with the biblical narrative. Let's see what else he didn't address here. Joshua is dealing with the Philistines, but yet he's going into the land of Canaan. And the God of the Bible is telling him he's going to fight against the Ashadites, the Gassathites, the Eshkolites, and the Gittites, and all these other ites. But yet it's an Egyptian stronghold. Tutmos conquered all of Canaan. Amenhotep III conquered all of Canaan because them damn Asiatics was over there acting up. So he brought them back home, and those were Shasu people. You can't prove those was Israelites. You just went into a militaristic campaign and somehow tried to shoehorn the Israelite narrative into an African narrative. That's what happens in wars. You're asking a question, why? You're supposed to be telling us how, what, when, and where. You never did that, Anonymous. You just raised a question and said, I have to answer it. I'm answering it. Your timeline is off. You didn't use the biblical narrative. You used Manfred B. Tech and thought we didn't know these arguments. Let's continue on. Let's see what else the Iwar papyrus. The one thing people got to understand about the Iwar papyrus, that papyrus was prepared by a priest named Iwar. And it's telling you, it never mentions any firstborn sons dying. It tells you Asiatics have come into our land. I'm reading it right here. And at the end of it, this is what it says. All you got to do is read the end of it. And this is what it says. Let me go down because it's a long papyrus. And for some odd reason, they just try to pull this out. Let me get here. It says, this is what Iwar said when he addressed the majesty of the Lord of all herds. It means, this is him addressing what these things mean. It means that ignorance of what is good to the heart, you have done what is good in their hearts, and you have nourished the people with it. Never, never go against the gods. They cover their faces through the fear of morrow. That is how a man grows before he dies. So the entire thing is a parable. All you got to do is read it. And this was written in the 19th century BCE and later brought back out during the time of Ramses III. You didn't know that either. That's called shoehorning and pseudo scholarship with an appeal to fallacy. Let's continue on. What else I got to address? Oh, he brings up the Santorini volcano. The Santorini volcano erupted in the 17th century, man. Man, stop it. And then you went with the authority to sit up there and say, oh, it erupted sometimes in the 15th century. But I thought Yahweh destroyed everything. They never mentioned Yahweh in any of those studies with the Santorini volcano. Then you mentioned an eastwardly wind was the one that swept the waters across. But Josephus even mentions in his work, right here in the age of the antiquities of the Jews, this is what he says. He says right here in chapter 2, verse 16, it says, while the sake of those who accompanied Alexander, king of Macedonia, who lived comparatively, but a little while ago, the Pamphian Sea retired and allowed them passage through itself when they had no other way to go. I mean, when was the will of God to destroy the monarchy of the Persians? He's telling you that even Josephus mentions that God opens up the water for this group of people. So we see this as being a parable, not nothing literal, especially when you were just on here saying that these things are myths. Now you run into it trying to make it literal. This is you contradicting yourself, bro. So let me see what else you got. You brought up here. Oh, you brought up, this is what he did, y'all. They dated back to the 15th century because the political situation, they dated back to the 15th century for the political situation that was going on in Kemet. But that time was a time of prosperity for it. So what he trying to do is run to Avaris and say, why were all the people all of a sudden gone? But he never listed any dates. The people left because the Egyptians kicked them out. The Avaris was the Hyksos capital. That's why it was empty. What are you talking about? So y'all dated all the way back to the 15th, 16th centuries, 14th century. So because y'all know the political situation was stabilizing at this time. You never proved in Exodus. All you did was shoehorn everything. So, I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. And I don't know what pre-New Nefer had anything to do because that's never mentioned in the biblical narrative.
Time.
You also, let me go back over it. You said Senemu was Moses.
Time.
I canceled that out real quick. I showed you that the king that died in the biblical narrative was in fact a man, not a woman.
All right. Shout out to Chris Harris. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting come this rapid fire round. But before we get to the rapid fire round, we want to take a brief intermission just to calm it down just a little bit. Calm it down. We'll be right back for the rapid fire round, family. You're now rocking with the best. This is your boy Soleimani. And guess what? We got more debates lined up for the family. How y'all liking season 3 so far? I know, man. We took things to a whole nother level. Shout out to the league. Make sure you come prepared, because these debaters in this league is not playing this season as what y'all can see. These debaters are coming locked and loaded. So make sure you show some love to the boys on the mind when you come in the building for these debates. I want to know who's going to be the winner at the end. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for who's going to be the one to reign supreme for the 2020-2021 season. So, let's get these debates on, shall we? Alright, family. It is time for the rapid fire round. So, we're going to start out with Anonymous Hebrew. We're going to give him 10 minutes to interrogate Chris Harris once we bring him back in the building. All right. Camera's on. Whenever you guys ready, you could begin your rapid fire round. It is on Anonymous Hebrew. You have 10 minutes, brother, whenever you ready, brother.
Yo, you there, man?
Unmute your mic, Chris.
Yo, this is wasting my time, bro. I want my 10 minutes back. I want all my 10 minutes.
Yep.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, let me turn my camera on right quick. I dropped my, what's it called?
We ain't started yet. I still want all my 10 minutes back. So,
all right, go ahead.
All right, Anonymous, whenever you're ready, brother.
You got my 10 minutes up?
Brother, yes, I got you 10 minutes up, bro.
Good. All right, bro. Let's deal with this. All right. How do you view biblical chronology? Like, how are you coming up? Because in your presentation, you're clearly not on the same timeline as I am. So let's deal with Solomon. All right. When is the consensus or scholastic consensus of when Solomon would have reigned?
There is no scholastic consensus.
Okay. I want to point out to the judges that this is clearly a lie. Clearly, even Israel Finkelstein says that the scholastic consensus is that Solomon and David would have reigned somewhere in the in the 10th century. So that is scholastic consensus. Now you can say that you disagree with the temple or you disagree with the size of the kingdom, but the consensus is that these people existed. So okay, scholastic consensus says that these people lived around 970, or Solomon would have ruled around 970 BCE. Okay, and if you disagree with that, at least you have to admit that some people say he would have ruled around 970 BCE, correct?
I thought you said it was a consensus. Now you're saying some people.
I did. I'm giving you the chance to. I'm giving you the chance to save face.
Well, in order
to disagree.
I'm gonna answer your
question.
No,
sir. I'm sorry, sir. This is not your time to stop me. This is your time to answer my questions.
That's what I said I was going to do.
Okay, so back to the question, and I'll rephrase it since you want to play a game. If the consensus is that he reigned in 970 BCE, and then the biblical narrative says 480 years after that, he then is the Exodus, or before that, I'm sorry, 480 years before that is the Exodus. What time frame does that put us in, sir?
In order for you to sustain that premise and ask me
sir,
that,
please answer the question, sir.
Listen, man, if you want me to answer the question, you got to allow me to answer.
You're wasting my time, bro. I just need you to tell me 970 plus 480.
Every time I start answering your question,
970
cut me off.
Plus 480, 970 plus 480 equals what?
Sir, you would first have to prove the temple existed in order to ask me that question. You never provided any proof on that. There's no proof that temple existed. That is strictly literary work.
970 plus 480 equals what?
You tell me.
Okay, 1450.
It never happened. It never existed. You would have to prove that. That's a logical fallacy.
When did Thutmose III rule, sir?
He reigned in the 15th century BCE.
What year? Around 1450, right? That's the consensus?
That is one of the consensus, yeah. And there's proof of that. There's no proof. There's no proof of a man named Solomon ruling anywhere.
Got you.
That's different.
All right. Now, back to the point. When did Amenhotep III live? And who was his father?
He also lived in the 15th century, in the late
15th
century. His father was.
Father?
You gonna let me answer, bro, or you just gonna keep cutting me off? It was Thutmose III.
No, it was Thutmose IV, bro. Where do we see?
Wait a minute. Amenhotep II. Are you serious?
I said no. We said Amenhotep III. Don't try to play it. You even said
okay.
You even said Amenhotep III in your rebuttal. That's why I'm dealing with it. Now I want everybody to notice that he made a mistake. If you go back and play his rebuttal, he said that Thutmose III was the father of Amenhotep III. That is a lie and that is a falsity. And he built his whole premise on that. About somebody dying. I'm sorry, not the premise. I'm sorry, not the premise, the rebuttal. About Amenhotep III being the first born that died. That's exactly what you said. That is not true. That's why I brought up Amenhotep III and not Amenhotep II. Thank you very much, sir. That's strike 2. Now, back to what I was saying. When we deal, so you said Hatshepsut would have been the Pharaoh and all of this, right? We clearly see in the Bible, right, that Moses is told that these people died. Now, how long, according to the biblical narrative, was Moses in the wilderness for, sir?
40 years.
Right. So if Moses is 80 years at the time of the Exodus, and the time of the Exodus is dated in 1450, according to my narrative, right? Then that would mean that when he comes back there, the only person that could have been reigning was Thutmose III, correct?
If that's yeah, that's what it says. Yeah. Go ahead.
So according to the narrative, that I put forth, then Thutmose III would have had to be the Pharaoh, correct?
That's not true.
According to the narrative,
you have to let me answer the question.
We're not answering the question, bro.
Okay. Hey, moderator.
You don't need moderation
here because what he's
You
doing is
need
not
to
allowing
answer the questions.
You're not
You
like
need
you're
to
not
answer-
asking anything.
Bro, you're not answering the questions. You're trying to proselytize.
It
You're
tells you-
filibustering.
You gotta let me answer the question, dude.
Bro, I'm allowing to, but he's
No,
filibustering.
you're not.
He's
Every time I
wasting
begin
my
to
time.
answer a question, you start cutting me off.
Just like I said, bro.
Biblical
Filibuster.
narrative clearly tells you that Moses spent 40 years in Egypt and he fled. That's what it says. You
Okay.
stated in your premise, Exodus chapter 1 was a span of 250 years.
Oh,
It
yeah, let's
clearly
deal with
tells
that.
you Moses came back in. Hold on.
Yeah,
It clearly
let's deal with
tells you Moses came back in after the king died. You said
Got it.
yesterday, and it is
Got it.
on record, that Tutmos was the Pharaoh of the Exodus that suffered the curses. Therefore, Exodus chapter 2, verse 23, that king that died was you said was but the biblical narrative don't say it was a woman. It said that it was a man.
All right,
That's
let's
where
deal with
it
it.
failed at.
Now you just cut yourself and you don't even realize it. All right, so now, according to Exodus 12 and 40, how many years before the Exodus did the Israelites come into Egypt? 430. I'll help you because I had it in my slide presentation. 430 years, correct? So if the Exodus is 430 years after the time that they come in, correct?
No Exodus
Then-
ever happened. You never proved
But,
it.
but according to the biblical narrative,
Right.
the Exodus is 430 years after the time they come into Egypt. Then that would mean that there has to clearly be at least 280 years between the time of the death of Joseph and the
No.
time of the birth of Moses.
That's not true. Because the
Okay,
biblical narrative,
hold on,
you
let's
gotta
deal
let
with
me
it.
answer. Are you just gonna talk? Go ahead,
No,
talk
you're
away.
lying, so you have to deal with it. I gotta treat you as a hostile witness. You're lying on the stand. How old was Joseph when he died?
You doing all the talking.
How
Go
old was
ahead. I
Joseph?
ain't gonna answer nothing if you don't want me to.
How old? That's fine. You ain't gotta answer him. How old was Joseph when he died?
Joseph
I'll
never
help y'all.
existed.
So, according to the biblical narrative, how old was Joseph when he died?
Joseph never existed. You didn't prove
So,
that.
according to the biblical narrative, and I'm gonna help you out, okay, judges? You clearly see he's been beat up so bad that he has just quit. He doesn't even want to play anymore. So, according to the biblical narrative, Joseph died at the age of 110. So, if you do some simple math, you take 1450, you add 430, that puts you right at 1880. So you take 1880 and you subtract 73 because he would have been 37 when they came in, and that puts you right at 1870. So the death of Joseph is 1870. The birth of Moses is 1530. That is clearly 200 some odd years. He failed again miserably. That's why he doesn't want to interact with the actual debate.
I'm trying to interact with you, but you won't let me talk.
No,
Every time I begin to answer your
You're trying
questions,
to
you won't let me
filibuster.
talk.
You're trying to filibuster. You're trying to filibuster, and that's fine.
Okay.
So back to the question. If you say you want to answer it, we clearly see a time frame when they come into the kingdom. I'm trying to get you to answer this, but since you don't want to do that, I'll help you do something else. All right, I get it. What Egyptian record do we have of the Thera eruption?
You have the Tutmos stele, the Amos stele.
Exactly, the Amos stele, right?
Yeah.
So if we deal, if that's when you're dating everything that happened, you're saying that that's when the Santorini eruption happened, right? Right? Why do we clearly see that the Minoan palace has not been wasn't destroyed until 1450?
I don't know. You tell me, because that has nothing to do. Listen, you gotta let me answer and explain. You just talking.
You just asked me a question.
No, I didn't ask you anything. You're just talking.
I don't know.
over
You
me.
tell me.
You won't
said, I
let
don't
me
know, you
answer
tell
any
me.
questions.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, everything that you're asking me, you just got none of those dates mean anything because you clearly said that the king of the Exodus was Tutmos. You agreed to that. So who was the king before him? The king that was before him was Hatshepsut. It does not say it was another 230 years after the death of that king.
That is not what I said. That is not what I said. That is not what I said. And now you're shoehorning, right? Listen.
I'm not shoehorning anything. You've been doing it all night.
Look, you clearly can't even keep up with the timeline. You're not qualified to.
You're not on the timeline.
I'll say it to you one more
He's the
time.
man for B-Tech.
Joseph dies in Exodus 1. Moses is born in Exodus 2. That is clearly,
you can't prove
that
that
is
because you
clearly
said Moses
280 years difference.
It doesn't
You
matter.
caught up, bro.
That Moses was
Bro,
salute.
I tell you what, bro. Thank you for proving my premise this evening, and thank you for proving my other point that you were just gonna go all around. You were gonna. We said we weren't gonna deal with the Canaanite, with the conquest of Canaan. You still ran into that. You didn't deal with anything that I brought out though. Like I told you,
I debunked all your questions, sir.
No, you didn't. You
Yes,
played
I
with
did.
the Emperor, but you didn't give a date for it. You
I
played
gave you
with
the 19th century BCE when it was
you got
written.
the time frame. You got the time. Actually, the Emperor Pampers is really dated to the 13th century, and it's talking about a past event.
Rewritten in the 13th century BCE.
It's talking about a past event. You have no proof. You have nothing that shows it written in the 20th century.
Okay, you just wasted all your time.
I just beat you up. You proved my timeline. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, now it's on you, Chris Harris. You got 10 minutes to do your thing, brother. Whenever you're ready, you can begin your interrogation, brother.
All right. What was the name of this debate, Anonymous?
Did the Exodus happen according to the biblical narrative?
Okay. Does the biblical narrative mention Tutmos III?
Nope.
Does the biblical narrative mention Amenhotep III?
Nope.
Okay, so why did you say it was them?
Because you put into the debate, you wanted me to prove that I had to prove Tutmos III. That's why.
Oh, does the Bible give an accurate timeline?
Not without history. You have to add archaeology to it. There is no timeline. There is no time where the Bible is saying, oh, this happened in 1950 or this happened in 1900 BC, if that's what you mean by accurate. But it does give accurate accounts of the years that pass of the various situations. Just like when we read in Solomon in 1 Kings 6:1.
Okay,
480 years past.
I'm a little confused on what you just said there. You said that the biblical narrative is accurate according to history, but it doesn't give accurate dates. Is that what you just said?
What I said. No, what I said was it doesn't give. I said it doesn't give years. So you're not going to see like a 1950 or 1940 if that's what you're looking for.
Okay,
but,
so how can you say? Hold on, that's fine. I'm glad you said that. That's fine.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
But it does give you. Thank you. Yeah, you got class. Great. But I'm not filibustering. That's the difference. So
okay, moving on.
It does give you. Oh, now you lost your class.
Now, how do you have a starting timeline? How do you have a starting timeline? Listen, how do you have a starting timeline for Solomon's temple if it doesn't give accurate dates?
I told you, you have to line. I told you have to line it up with history. That was the first thing out of my mouth. So this is why I gave you historical, archaeological, and anthropological evidence.
Okay, can you show me some historical? Moving on. That doesn't make any sense.
I told you. Let
me ask a question. That's it. That's cool. If the Israelites left in the 15th century BCE, why or how did they build the city of Ramses?
I told you, Pi-Ramesses is what we call a toponym. So when you deal with Pithom and Ramesses, this is what it has been called throughout antiquity, right? So it was called either Avaris or Pi-Ramesses. That's why I showed you. That's why I showed you.
Okay, that's
fine.
That's
why I showed you Manfred B-Tech calling it Pi-Ramesses, Avaris. It's also called Roate. It's called Contour. It's called several different names.
Okay, cool. So I'm asking you again, if the toponym, if the writer is saying the Israelites built the city of Ramses, is that literal or figurative?
It's literal, and I told you how they did it.
Hold on. Stop real quick. Right there. You answered it. How can they build the city of Ramses when it was commissioned under Ramses III to be built?
Great question. Okay, so when you deal with the actual name of Ramses III, that is the building over the city of Avaris, or the city of or the city of Roate. I'm answering it. It's building over the city.
That's not what I'm asking. You're talking about.
If you let me finish, if you allow me to finish,
how can they build a city when they were not there for the answer? It's not built.
I notice you don't want me to answer. I know it hurts. I know it hurts.
I need you to answer that question for me.
I'm trying to.
Was not built until the 13th century BCE.
And once again, this is why the main person who has dug at this site for the last 30 years clearly says that it's called Avaris and Pyramesses. He's showing that there is no
it's
difference.
called Avaris because that's where the Hyksos ruled, man. That was the Hyksos capital. What are you talking about?
Do you want me to keep answering, or do you want to just proselytize?
Okay, let's move on because you can't answer that.
So.
All right, why does the biblical narrative mention the Philistines who arrived in the 12th BCE?
I told you this, the same reason, right? And so if you deal, and I even addressed this in my premise, if you understand that the Bible has redactions in it, so when you're dealing with when the Bible was actually penned, you get the name.
So the biblical narrative isn't always correct then.
No, that's not true. That's shoehorning, and that's you trying to fit something in the narrative.
Shoehorning. You just said it has redactions in it.
Relax, brother. Relax. So just because you have a redaction or an edit does not make it incorrect. It actually, if you want to call it what we call an anachronism, because you said this in your debate against Moore, an anachronism is also something that is used for the contemporaneous crowd so they can understand the time period and the place that he's talking about at that time.
Bingo. So if they're mentioning, hold on, stop right there.
No, I just proved my point.
You just answered yourself.
This is why I tell you that Pyramesses. This is why I tell you that Pyramesses and Avaris are the same. City. And
okay.
I clearly showed you.
Did Abraham, listen what I'm asking you, man. Did Abraham and Isaac encounter literal Philistines?
They encountered the people from Ashkelon. That's why I showed that in my. That's why I showed that.
Okay, but the biblical narrative said Philistines. Did the biblical narrative get it right?
Yes.
So they encountered Philistines that don't arrive to the 12th century BCE.
They would have encountered the people from Ashkelon who later become the Philistines.
But it does not mention Ashkelon in the biblical narrative in Genesis.
Because it's written in a time frame where it's speaking anachronistically to the people so it can be contemporaneous for that time.
So they did not encounter the Philistines, right?
They encountered the people that would have been out of the area.
Yes or no? Did they encounter the Philistines?
It's not a yes or no. It's not a yes or no question.
Thank you.
It's clearly not a yes or no question.
Listen,
you just died on that one too.
Does God speak in the biblical narrative?
Did the God speak in the biblical? God meets you in your mind. So
does God speak in the biblical narrative?
I need to understand what you mean speak. You mean audibly?
Thus saith the Lord. Is that a command of Yahweh?
Thus saith the Lord is somebody penning something that they said the Lord told them. I'm trying to understand what you mean. Are you saying that
now you don't mean know what thus saith the Lord mean? Okay, so
I just explained to you. Okay, go ahead, brother.
When God told Moses to avoid the Philistines, did God do wrong?
No, he told him to avoid that area. He said, "Don't go by the way of the Philistines." Right, and they didn't. They went down down south and Gulf. Hold on, they went down south and crossed at the Gulf of Africa.
I'm not asking you where they went. I'm talking about this group of people that don't arrive there until the 15th century. 12th century.
Once again, brother. Once again, this is why they're called Syro-Palestinian. They're called Ashkelon. They're called a bunch of different names.
They're called Philistines.
In the biblical narrative, you do have anachronisms. Like, what you want me to keep saying it over and over again?
You admitted that anachronisms speaks of a certain time frame. You admitted that.
No, I did not. I said the anachronism. I said the anachronism is a contemporaneous name used to speak of something that existed beforehand. That's exactly what I said. Okay, and you know how I know I said it? Because you used it in your debate against Moore. These questions are horrible.
Moving on. Can you show me where an 18th dynastic king commissioned any group of Israelites to build the city of Ramses?
It doesn't know because he didn't. That's not what the Bible said. That's why I told you it happened in the time of the Hyksos. You clearly don't understand the biblical narrative.
Whoa, wait a minute. So the Hyksos told him to build the city of Ramses?
Yes, that's what the archaeology even shows.
The Ramesside kings don't get there to the 19th century BCE. Why you don't understand that?
This is why I told you have anachronisms.
Anonymous.
Can you keep up? Are you not able to keep up?
Sir,
this is you up twice in two rapid fire rounds.
The Hyksos make mention of the Ramesside kings?
I just told. First off, the Hyksos ain't making mention of nothing. The Hyksos didn't write anything.
And they did.
I told you that they had them build those treasure cities. That treasure city is a
biblical narrative tells
do you want the
Ramses.
answer or do you want to overtalk me?
I'm not
biblical narrative.
I'm trying to get you
The
to get
biblical narrative. The biblical narrative shows that this area was of Varus. This is why the main person that digs there says that it's the same place. And so when it says that they built the treasure cities of Pyramses, they are talking about when the Hyksos commissioned them to build everything that harbored Fort City at Avaris. That's what it's talking about.
Exodus 1:11 says that a king commissioned them, told them to do it.
Yeah, the Hyksos king. That's who was a
Wait a minute, it wasn't an Egyptian king?
No, they would have called him. They would have called all of them an Egyptian. That's why I told you.
Oh
That's
my
why
God.
I told you there is no difference.
I'm done. That's it, Solar.
Yeah, I know you're done.
We're done, Solar. Thank you, Solar. Game over right there. We're done. He just contradicted himself. Thank you, y'all.
You're done. I just answered all the questions. I literally just answered all the questions and you're running. So I'll take the last 57 seconds. So what he doesn't want to come out.
So is we're gonna go and take a brief intermission, family. Close this thing out. So we'll see you guys in about 2 minutes. This is the Solar Vision Debate League, man. Yo, show some love to your brother. Hit the Cash app. Any donation is much appreciated, family. I know y'all loving this debate. Show some love by supporting the channel. Hit the Cash app. Hit the Cash app. We'll see you guys in about 2 minutes.
Biz on the track. SV on the beat.
All right, family. We're going to go ahead and close this thing out. We're going to start out with Anonymous Hebrew. Anonymous Hebrew, you have 5 minutes to do your thing, brother. Whenever you're ready, you could begin your closing.
All right, let me get my clock up. All right, go ahead. Okay, you can see my screen? All right, bet. So, yeah, it's a great debate, man. It went just how I thought it was going to go. And so the first thing I'll start off by saying is, once again, the biblical narrative is clear. All right, and let's show you. Look at the bottom. You see the consensus of the building of Solomon's temple, 970 BCE. All right. Then you go to the Exodus happening at 1550 because you add 480 years. That puts you right in the time frame of Thutmose III, which my opponent did not want to address. Then if we keep going backwards, Moses flees, which we addressed was Hatshepsut and Thutmose II, who were co-regents at the time. Right? She has a co-regency with Thutmose II, and she has a co-regency with Thutmose III. Right? Moses flees at that time. Please mute your mic, please, sir. Moses flees at that time. And then we clearly see, we keep moving. Moses is born, right? Hatshepsut is Pharaoh's daughter. Then we can keep going. We see the expulsion of the Hyksos. Joseph dies. All of this would have happened in Exodus chapter 1. Because like I said, they came into Egypt 430 years before that. So it's clear that Joseph did not live to be no doggone 430 years. So if he died at the age of 110 and Moses is born in 1530, you see him dying at 1807. That's clearly 250 some odd years. This is simple, family. I've proven the narrative. I've proven the Exodus. My opponent just simply sat there, acted all night like he didn't want to deal with it. Then he took you all around the world to things that didn't have to do with the Exodus. He took you to the Canaanite conquest. He took you to Genesis. He barely addressed the Ichabod Papyrus. And then he said that I didn't address that Cinnamon had parents. Like, that still does not, and I clearly did, but it still, even if I missed that, it still does not discredit Cinnamon being the person that we know to be Moses. He didn't discredit anything. He did a lot of appealing to emotion, and he begged you to believe what he said. But I clearly came and I showed archaeological, historical evidence to prove my point. I didn't even have to go into my entire debate, right? So I showed it to you, family. So there's not a question of whether or not it happened. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't care if you believe it or not, but you have to admit that I came and I showed and I proved it, and he could not discredit it. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, you have no choice but to give me the adequate scoring, but you also have to give him some losing of points because he didn't properly address it. He didn't properly go through the narrative. You have to ask yourself, if someone is equipped to attack the biblical narrative, but they never go into it, all they do is just play around the outside of it, play on the fringe, but doesn't want to come in the middle of the ring and deal with it, are they equipped to have the conversation? And the answer is no. So I'm going to give you one more summarization. Solomon's temple was built at 970. The Bible says 480 years before that, the Exodus happened. That puts you right at 1450. That stuck Moses III all day, twice on Sunday. From there, the Bible is clear that it's 40 years. Then you have that Setsu. I wonder why she's also reigning in that time period. Then you got another 40 years, Pharaoh's daughter. Why is she also living in that time period? Why is the Bible giving you all of these things and they're lining up with the timeline, but yet people want to say it didn't happen? Because you have some form of bias. And that's fine. I'm not mad at you. But what you will not do is railroad me this evening like I didn't come and show it. The statistical improbability or probability that all these people are in the same place at the right time to equal what the Bible says is almost impossible. Cornell University calls this a preponderance of evidence, when over 50% of the facts point directly to the issue that you are getting at. And that's what I've done this evening. I've came, I've shown, and I've conquered. I thank the brother for the debate. I thank Solar for having this. As always, tapes on the ground. It was fun. And yeah, I'm here all season. Shalom, family.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. All right. So, shout out to Anonymous Hebrew. We're going to hand this thing over now to Chris Harris. You have 5 minutes to close this thing out, brother. Whenever you ready, you could begin your closing. Chris.
All right, let me get my what's it called up. All right, can you see the screen here?
Not yet. Waiting for it to pop up.
Hold on, let me do this real quick. All right. And let me pull this up. Okay, hold on. So let me get this up, and we are good to go. So 1 second.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah, something's going on though. The right one isn't coming up. Something the right screen ain't coming up for some odd reason. All right, you know what? Here it is. Let me just pull it right back up out of here. So hold on. Here it is. Downloads. Okay, here we go. Right here, fam. All right. Can it be seen now, Solar?
Yeah, they can see it, brother.
Okay, cool. Now, this is a chart of the early date of the Exodus. This is why he didn't want me to answer any questions. But before I get started, I want to show y'all how much he lied in his Q&A. And then he just tried to recant that lie. He tried to say that the Hyksos commissioned the Israelites to build the city of Ramses. The city of Ramses was not built until Ramses built it, and he built it on top of Avaris. He was the one that commissioned to have that built. He never addressed that at all. But then he turned around and said that, listen to this, y'all, that the Hyksos made him do it. But Exodus 1:11 clearly tells you that the Israelites were put in hard bondage by the what? By the Egyptians. It never mentions Hyksos. It says the Egyptians. So he tried to play with that narrative. It also, and then he tried to say that, listen to this. This is horrible. Moses. He tried to say that Moses. So you're saying that Moses was alive during the time of the Hyksos because he's the one that redeemed them from the bondage of the Egyptians. So if Tutmos was the king, Moses fled from that king that died before Tutmos reigned. And you said it was a Hyksos king. You're a liar. You sat right there and lied. He fled from that king. So now you're saying Moses fled from a Hyksos king. The Hyksos period was the 15th and 16th dynasty. So now you're saying Moses is over 400 years old? Here's the chart right here of an early date of the Exodus. It was 446 BCE. They dated it from the time of from Solomon's temple in Exodus chapter 1, verse 6, but there's no proof of it. So the premise was fallacious. I want to go over something else that he did here. You got to first prove that the Exodus happened. You just can't. I mean, you got to first prove that Solomon's temple happened. Then he used Senemu. He used Senemu in his premise to say that was Moses, and this man disappeared. Somehow shoehorning the biblical narrative into the Egyptian narrative. When Moses' mother and father was Amram and Jochebed. When Samut's parents was Ramos and Nefer. Judges, take note of that. Take note of that. Because he based this on his premise. I used the biblical narrative to show you that you're out of date. They are expressing a narrative that you admitted with anachronisms define a timeline. They are expressing a timeline of the 12th century. You couldn't get past it, bro, because then he didn't even want to answer, does God speak in the Bible? He ran from that. But they'll say, all praise the Most High when God told him to avoid the Philistines. So apparently the Philistines was a people in this area, but we know archaeologically, historically, and archaeological and scholastic consensus, they don't get there till the 12th century BCE. That's how you beat up the narrative. Oh, it's just an anachronism, but the anachronisms define the context of your narrative. That didn't make any sense how you just played and toyed around with that. He never addressed any of my points. He broadly scathed over them. He never addressed anything in his biblical narrative. Instead, he used them good white folks narrative in order to define what his biblical narrative meant. He never used a Hebrew text to define the Exodus. He used Manfred B. Tech. And this was the best that you had. And then instead of letting me answer the question scholastically, he got to cut me off the minute I open my mouth. Of course I don't want to answer no questions. That's ghetto shit. That's ridiculous. That's where we at in this league now. So get on out of here with all that. You never addressed your biblical narrative. All you did was shoehorn, use appeal to authority fallacies, etymological fallacies. That's all you did all day is shoehorned it into the Egyptian narrative. So Yahweh is lying now. So that means God don't speak in the Bible. That means none of this stuff is true in your biblical narrative. You came out of the biblical narrative to express what was going on and tried to use the date of 483 years that and say, oh no, see, it's not talking about that in Exodus chapter 1, backdating your own narrative. That in Exodus chapter 7 was expressing Abraham's sojourn and the Israelite sojourn. That's Christian nonsense you tried So you're not an Israelite. And you thought I was going to fall for that. You never answered Joshua's siege in Shahuraim when in fact the Egyptians had it already. You never addressed Tutmos. You tried to bring up the Thera eruption. Then you used Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III, Tutmos, and none of these guys ain't even mentioned in there.
Time. All right. Shout out to Chris Harris. We're going to go in and take a brief intermission, and we're going to get to the question and answering portion of Solar Vision Debate League in a second. Shucklebuck round, bro. Be ready. This is the league. Man.
Yeah.
Vanglorious Vanguard.
Knowledge born.
Yeah.
United Front. What you want?
To the Knowledge Radio.
We in here. What you got? Dot.
Work hard as a slave to one day be your savior. The wave unwavering. This is a labor of love. Rise with a purpose every day. Invigorated. If we were on TV, we'd be 10 times syndicated. If we waited for validation, a paycheck or accolades, we'd be starved, already lost or ran away. But when you're square, solid, and your circle too, you don't need a place for silence. The concept is conquered through media, not areas of people activity. A mix that don't lose ethnicity, tightness that don't lose elasticity. Explicitly, this isn't where we give the novice regard. Nah, this is where knowledge is born. Last time that I checked, I'm undefeated. Deliver edicts, can't resist when the gods build and manifest freedom. When lines get crossed, they may push a loss, cause they get handed a check. We kick the can and cancel your cancerous gestures. A prophet vision, precision, the prescription for the sickness is to inoculate your fate with the winning. Arrogant beginnings turn to humble endings. And US with KBA is a win-win. 1K.
Yes, family, you are rocking with the best here, Solar Vision Debate League, and it's time to get to the Shucklebuck round, family. So, if you got any questions, we're going to start out with Anonymous Hebrew, and then we're going to go with Chris Harris. So, any questions for Anonymous Hebrew, ask them now in the chat room or die. This is the Solar Vision Debate League Shucklebuck round session. So, questions. It was an excellent debate. We will be rocking out tomorrow with another thriller. Family, we got Domo in the building. He will be squaring off against Israel Doctrine. So, make sure you be in the building for that. Once again, we rocking out 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, make sure you be in the building for that. So, any questions for Anonymous? Don't get scared. You know? Don't get scared. You know what I mean? Ask the questions. Or was this debate over y'all comprehension level? Was they talking over your head? You know what I'm saying? Because this is like the elite, you know what I'm saying? You're dealing with, grade A stock here, bro. So you don't want to embarrass yourself. Did you just solve a mystery that even biblical scholars, archaeologists, and other experts have not solved? That's your first question. Anonymous Hebrew.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Did you just solve a mystery that even biblical scholars, archaeologists, and other experts have not solved?
No, that's the funny thing. Like, nothing I said isn't found by other archaeologists or other teachers and things like that. Like, I didn't bring out nothing new this evening. That's the funny part. Like, nothing I said this evening was new. It just shows if you think that this is something new, you clearly haven't done the study on this. And it was really kind of, I added a couple of things that I found in terms of like seeing the Passover narrative and things like that. But most of this has been well documented and well publicized. I just put I put my spin on it in terms of how you interpret the archaeology and how you deal with the biblical narrative. And I think when you go back and watch it and you really watch it in its entirety, you'll have no choice but to say, man, you know, it makes sense.
All right, Anonymous, can you show us in scripture that the Hyksos and Assyrians oppressed the Israelites?
It's not going to say them by name. So if you ask me to show the name, so what I showed was, if you do the math, right, and so we clearly see Solomon's temple, 970 BCE. You add 480 years, that takes you to 450. You add another 430 years to when they came in there, that takes you to 1880. At that time, Joseph would have been 37. The Bible tells you that Joseph lived to be 110 years old. So that's 73 years from 180. And I'm doing this off the dome, right? So that puts you at 1807. If Moses is born at 1530, because he's 80 years old at the time of the Exodus, and Joseph dies at age 110, that puts it at 1807. Bro, that's 200 some odd years between 1807 and 1530. Moses is born in Exodus chapter 2. Everything else happens in Exodus chapter 1. All you got to do is simply do the math. It's right there for you, right? Joseph dies, and then all of those things happen. The archaeology shows that they would have had to have been oppressed by the Hyksos, and then the Thebans come in and they simply just continue it. But they don't oppress them the way that the Hyksos does.
All right. Can you show that the Philistines were during your timeline?
Like I said, when you look at Ashkelon, Ashkelon is where you would get the Philistine people. I showed that again in my debate. When you look at my premise, I show you the same DNA that's connected to the Philistines would be the same people that you get in Ashkelon. And like I explained to the brother, you do have edits and redaction in the book. And so those edits or redactions are what, if you want to call them anachronisms, I don't care, like, because anachronism doesn't discredit something. So if you want to call it an anachronism, it's the type of anachronism that people are using for contemporaneous names for people in that particular time to point to a topographical location. It's what we call a toponym.
So that would not be according to the biblical narrative, you're saying?
What do you mean that would not be according to the biblical narrative? Explain.
They were not called the Philistines?
Like I told you, if you're dealing with when they wrote it, then yes, it would have been called the Philistines. If you're dealing with the actual editor, he's dealing with the Philistines. It's like me right now. Like if I'm talking about the old name of St. Paul, Minnesota, and I call it Buckshot, Minnesota, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So I would have to call it St. Paul, Minnesota. We see this several times throughout the Bible. It'll say such and such and such at this place, and then it'll say something like, or what it used to be, or it's that name to this day, things like that. We clearly know that Moses didn't write his own death. So these are scribes, these are editors that are writing this. You just have to take the time to do biblical hermeneutics.